Or we can look at some investment options for you. What's the right money moves? You see anything different as a pill? Yeah, no.
That is naloxone nasal spray. Fentanyl. It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. Why would
These motherfuckers ladies! Yes, these motherfuckers ladies! Fuck 'em. We don't want to talk about them. It's getting boring as fuck. motherfuckers right here. Yes, these motherfuckers right here. Fuck 'em. We don't want to talk about them. It's getting boring as fuck. These motherfuckers right here. Yes, these motherfuckers right here. Fuck 'em. We don't want to talk about them. It's getting boring as fuck.
Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Bounce up, bounce up. Balls up above. Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Those donkey balls are bouncing all around. Those donkey balls are bouncing, making no breaks.
Sniffing, you can smell them. Those donkey balls are yelling, and they're swinging to the beat of a loser's song. Never turn your back, 'cause those donkey balls are bouncing on your dreams. Suck 'em, suck 'em. Those donkey balls are bouncing on your chin again. What a sin, we've got to grin again and again. Never turn your back, 'cause those donkey balls are bouncing on your dreams. Suck 'em, suck 'em. Those donkey balls are bouncing on your chin again. What a sin, we gotta grin again and again.
He would be so scared to see me.
Everybody thinks we was doing this shit, doxing motherfuckers. Nah, they came at us first.
I got a fire raging in my front yard.
Oh, why did you set your front yard on fire? Are you drinking again?
Slacking off the podcast. Fuck your teams, our boss. Because those authorities. Slacking off the podcast. Fuck your team, dog balls. You call them sorts of authorities.
Slacking off the podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show.
What's going on, guys?
Doc?
Oh, must be Ed. Are you on your end?
I am.
All right. So, what about you, Doug? How's your world going?
Pretty good. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. Everybody can be heard. It's going to be a good day, guys.
Yep.
Hallelujah.
No, wait. We haven't checked everybody. Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Where's Nikki at? Oh, I don't see Nikki yet.
Oh, I'm sure she'll join.
It's just like a woman. She's late, isn't she?
Yeah, that's right.
Is Mr. Divine here?
You would throw that in there, wouldn't you?
Oh,
I had to.
we see that Jason has joined us. Jason Marks of On the Marks show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, always glad to be here, man. Trying
Hallelujah.
to check out the new next setup. By the way, found out Twitch simulcast is working and TikTok is working. So we're making progress.
That's fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome. And I wonder if Mr. Divine has joined us yet. Have you joined us, Mr. Divine?
Come on. What's up, gentlemen? How we doing?
There he is.
Hallelujah. So here we are. All the excitement in the whole world.
Oh,
We like
God.
it.
Big week this week. Big week.
It is a big week. You got something in particular you want to talk about, Ed?
I mean, I'm fired up for the U.S. Open.
Oh, the U.S. Open. I'm fired up for the U.S. Open as well. And Mr. Divine has been feeding me all kinds of facts that I probably really need here for all day. And so let's kick off some coverage of the U.S. Open, guys. This is the big showcase for U.S. golf. It's a long-term thing. It's a huge deal. And what do we think on this? You want to start on this, Sean?
I'll let Ed go first. I'm excited that Ed is excited because normally Ed doesn't seem excited, but when Ed is excited, that makes me excited. So,
No, I really like watching golf.
yes, but when you say you're excited, sometimes you don't sound excited. For once, you actually legitimately sound excited. And
I'm excited.
I love it. So why are you so excited, Ed?
Well, because the U.S. Open is my favorite of the majors because it's so the closest one to even par that the winner will end up at.
That is correct. It is known as the toughest test in golf. And the United States Golf Association loves to see the winner at par or even over par.
Yeah.
And the course they're playing, the Big Brute, known as Oakmont Country Club, just outside of Pittsburgh, Steel City, has historically produced a winner that is over par. The last time they were there was 2016. Dustin Johnson was under par. I think he was -2. He was -3 until they gave him some stupid penalty. They told him his ball moved, but he was under par. Prior to that, though, in 2007, I think Angel Cabrera the winning score was +5.
That sounds right.
That just tells you how tough this course was. And then I think Ernie Els in '94 was +2 or 3. I'd have to go back and check that one. But
And the primary rough is 5. The primary rough is 5 inches thick.
And uniform as well. So I was watching the coverage on that, and so not only is it 5 inches thick, but as they've been growing it for the they've been mowing it uniformly in one direction, then incrementally raising the blades of the lawnmowers, and then going back another direction. So there will not be any friendly, easy lies in the rough. They should all be really not fun if you hit the ball in the rough.
Yep.
So will that benefit the wedge players, you think?
Well,
so far, nobody has really been able to get the ball, at least in the practice rounds, out of the primary rough with a wedge or even a high eye. Like, it's.
Well, they can get it out with a wedge, but it's
not going to go that far. Yeah, it's a layup. Yeah, Oakmont is one of the only courses that not only do they want it to be punitive, but they pride themselves on how difficult and how punitive it is. The old saying at Oakmont is a bad shot is a shot lost. So they just recently did a renovation of the course that Gil Hans did, and he's a noted golf architect who builds new courses and renovates old courses, obviously. And the one thing the Oakmont membership said when he started this project, ensure the course does not get easier, it can only get harder. That was his award to the membership at Oakmont. He could not make the course easier. It had to stay as difficult as it was, or he could make it more difficult. So, and I think he did that. There's a par 3 this week that's just under 300 yards. That's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You got a pick?
Well, the other thing you love about our National Open, the U.S. Open, is it is the most, when you say open, it means open to anyone. And when they say that, they mean there is qualifying that goes, almost realistically starts, the year prior, goes through the spring with your sectionals, your regional, and then finally, a week ago Monday, was final qualifying at 10 locations in the United States, I think 1 in Canada, with 700 golfers vying for, I think, 44 slots. So everyone that gets to Oakmont that will tee it up Thursday has been appropriately tested and validated and earned their way there, unlike some other tournaments where they don't have as quite a stringent yet fair qualifying procedures in place. So
yeah, if you win the Masters, you're in for life. I mean, you could play when you're 95 if you weren't embarrassed.
Right, but if you win the U.S. Open, you only get 5 years, and then you got to start over. You either need to win another U.S. Open or you got to go back through qualifying. Yeah, the other three.
No, I mean if you're at the top of the money list, you're
or that, sure. But the U.S. Open is the only one of the 4 that if you win it, you do not get lifetime exemption status.
Yep.
And so one of those is coming to an end here. I think this might be DJ's last hurrah and maybe Phil Mickelson's last hurrah at a U.S. Open. So certainly a lot to play for the 156 that are going to tee it up on Thursday. Do I have a pick? It's hard to pick against Scotty Scheffler, but for argument's sake, I'll play. I'll play someone else. I'm gonna take Xander Schauffele.
Oh my God, that's my pick.
He's a little bulldog. I like the way he approaches things.
He's a grinder.
He is a grinder, man, and he's embraced. He's won the PGA at Valhalla. That was under great conditions. He won the British Open under some of the worst conditions last year with 30-mile-an-hour winds
at 9 under,
sheets of rain, and so if there's anybody that could knock off Scotty or Bryson, who's won 2 U.S. Opens and get 2 very challenging courses. Bryson's 2 are at Winged Foot and Pinehurst. Those are no slouches. They're not the easiest tracks in the world. So if I'm going to go with anybody, I guess, and not take Scotty, I'm going to go with Xander Schauffele. That's not to say, though, that Scotty can't win, the way Scotty's been playing lately.
He hasn't won an Open, has he?
Not the U.S. Open, no. No, he has not. He's got the PGA Championship and his 2 Masters.
So it'd be a big win for him. If he could win it, it would be a big win for him and part of the overall.
I mean, you're not kidding. But that would set up high drama heading into the British Open or the Open Championship in July. Because Scotty would then have a chance to complete the career Grand Slam.
Where is the Open?
This year, it's up in Northern Ireland at Royal Portrush. They were just there, I think, 5 or 6 years ago when Shane Lowry won. But wouldn't that be a crazy thing if, you have Rory win the career Grand Slam at the first major and then Scotty win it at the last major of the year? I mean, I think that would be incredible. That would be a hell of a story and a hell of a year for golf. If you could get 2 career Grand Slam winners in the same year when you haven't had it prior to this year in 25 years. So
I'm not picking it.
But it's not going to be easy for Scotty. Scotty's the hottest guy coming in right now. He's won 3 tournaments out of his last 4 starts. He didn't play last week, the Canadian Open, and Canadian Open had kind of a weaker field, and that's unfortunate because it's put right in front of the U.S. Open. I think it needs to be moved to a better tour date because it is a great tournament. My pick is I'm going to go with the little bulldog. I'm going with Xander Schauffele. He's a grinder. He's tough as nails. And the great thing is, when he wins, he usually smokes a victory cigar. So, that's who I'm rooting for.
Now, Jason, what do you got on this program? Who do you got to win this thing? Oh, we're not hearing him.
Yeah, Jason's having a little audio.
Okay, that's my bad.
There we go.
I actually have my microphone. I have my microphone down like an idiot, so that's my fault. Bad job by me. So, I guess I'm going to just kind of go looking with the chalk here because I'll tell you the truth. Outside of the Masters, and we've discussed this on the podcast before, I haven't really watched as much golf as I would like, but I've been focusing more on the Stanley Cup Finals, the NBA Finals, and the College World Series that's coming up, which we're going to be talking about later. But since you guys kind of put me on the spot, I guess I'm either just going to kind of go with the chalk here, and I'll go Xander Schauffele or Scotty Scheffler.
Hell yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, you'd be a fool to really pick. I mean, the only other one I can think of, Ed, other than Bryson, Xander, or Scotty, who's your dark horse that you got? Give me a dark horse.
I've got one. Give us yours, Ed. Who's your dark horse, Ed?
Don't think too hard, Ed.
Well,
the Swedish guy. Egbert, I forget his name.
Ludwig Oberg.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
But it's so hard to predict because the winner is going to be someone who puts it in the fairway, and you can't even some of the top guys can win a birdie fest where they're hitting in the rough, but the rough is so light that they're just banging it on the green and making putts.
Sure.
So you don't know unless you watch the whole golf tournament how accurate they were off the tee, because that's going to be critical.
No, you're absolutely right. This is not going to be you can just put the ball all over the place and be okay.
And I wouldn't be surprised if some guys use long irons or 3-woods off the tee to try to keep it in play.
I think that's probably the smart decision. If you're erratic right now with the driver, you may just, like you said, long iron, 5-wood even,
If you're a big driver though and you're accurate, that can make a big difference. You can take chances in.
That's why DJ was so lethal there in 2016, because not only was he hitting his driver arguably the farthest or top 3 furthest in that U.S. Open in 16 at Oakmont, but he was accurate. He was putting that drive in the fairway. And you can attack the greens when you're in the fairway at Oakmont. When you're in the rough, it's very hard to advance the ball to the greens. Bob, who's your dark horse?
Harris English.
Oh, you stole mine, you stinker. I think tell us why, but I think that's an excellent call.
Because that's why I asked that question, because I feel he's the kind of guy that's going to drive relatively long and accurate and get a good combination of it. I don't think he's the longest driver or the most accurate driver, but I think he's got a solid combination of those two things,
Oh yeah, when Harris puts it together, he can be very accurate, very precise. As long as he doesn't beat himself up too much. I've been around him. I was following him around Pebble Beach a couple of years ago at the Pro-Am, and when he's positive and doesn't get in his own head, man, he can play with just about anybody. But when he gets angry, he tends to lose his game a little bit. But that's a great call. I was thinking Harris English myself, so I'll go back to the drawing board. I'll go with the Canadian Corey Connors, who is very accurate. He's not the longest guy off the tee, but he's pretty accurate, pretty precise. He's been knocking on the door a little bit this year. I don't think he has a win yet, but he's somebody that if he's accurate, he's generally top 5, top 10. He's hanging around. And he seems like the kind of guy that could come in and sneak off and grab a U.S. Open. We've seen that in the past, a la, Jeff Ogilvy sneaking a U.S. Open away from Phil Mickelson, who was not accurate. So accuracy is going to be the key elixir, I think, this week in the United States Open. Doug, do you have anybody for the U.S. Open?
Yes, Happy Gilmore. I'm going with Happy Gilmore.
which is not normally your pick, Doug. Usually you go with Roy Tin Cup McIlroy.
That's what I was thinking, but I just kind of want to switch it up, man.
Switching it up. All right. Any other final thoughts, gentlemen, on the United States Open this week?
I can't wait. That's my final thought. I love it.
Yep, very excited. Now, I'll turn over. Jason, I want to talk Stanley Cup Finals and NBA Finals. Jason, give us your thoughts on those two. Pick one.
I'll say about the first with the NBA Finals, it's actually been a much better series than I anticipated, with Indiana coming out with the first game and then Oklahoma City coming back into the second game. And Scott Van Pelt said it before, that the media didn't give enough respect for Indiana because they just kind of flew under the radar. Oklahoma City by far is a much better, superior team because it's been built from the ground up. But from what I have watched so far, even though Indianapolis, Oklahoma City is not the sexiest, It's by far been a very compelling series. And as for the Stanley Cup Finals, for Edmonton to get that one was pretty impressive. But I think you're starting to see now where the Florida Panthers are really starting to kind of lean in, pull their weight a little bit, because to the point they're getting the Oilers frustrated because what was it, 5 fights on the ice the other night out of frustration?
What they did last night was they imposed their will.
Right.
And I don't know if Edmonton can deal with that.
It's going to be tough, even though that they have players from other teams that have Stanley Cup Finals experience. But again, this is a Florida team that just won it last year. So they're kind of meshed together now. And I will say this, the acquisition of Brendan Marchand has totally changed that franchise's trajectory for years to come.
Hell yeah. Now, I wonder if something structural about the league that Canadian teams are having a hard time winning. Even though we've got one in the finals now, I'm with Ed. I believe that the Panthers are just dominant over them, and they're playing.
I mean, Edmonton is a highly skilled team, but the Panthers, they're just nasty. Man.
Well, it's a reason why they throw rats on the ice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to that point, Bob, we do have to say that I think the U.S. outnumbers Canadian teams 22-8 in the league. I think there's 8 teams in Canada, and the other 22 are in the U.S. So there's a numerical advantage there.
Yeah, but that's 70% and a little more.
Hey, in poker, you'd take 70%, Ed. Come on now.
Oh, yeah.
But what I'm saying is that does not explain a 32-year Canadian drought.
Well, along with the hard salary cap, I think, you've seen these kind of, since the Canadian team has won these mini dynasties of the Red Wings, the Devils, the Penguins, the Blackhawks, now kind of Florida, right? You had Tampa Bay for a little bit. Now you have Florida, the Panthers. Obviously, there's onesie-twosies here and there, but it is quite strange that it's been 32 years since the Canadian team took it home.
Well, also, you got to think of the fact that there's a lot less Canadian teams now than there was in 1993. You look at the Quebec Nordiques, they moved to Colorado. You look at the Winnipeg Jets, they moved to Arizona, and then eventually now they're in Utah. So you're seeing a lot less Canadian teams now than you did prior, which, decreases the odds a little bit.
True, and after Quebec moved to Colorado a few years after they moved, they ended up winning a cup. That really has to chap somebody's butt a little bit, Very similar to when the Ravens were previously the Browns, and they became the Baltimore Ravens. And 4 years after that move, they won the Super Bowl. I think a lot of Cleveland fans were chapped, about that. But
I'm sure there was a lot of people in Quebec City that were going Sacre Bleu.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, they did get one back because hockey apparently did not take in Atlanta. And the Flame, what were they? The
Winnipeg Jets.
Thrashers,
the Atlanta Threat. Now they're back, and they're the second iteration of the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, it's exciting and new.
And
they had the best record in hockey this year.
And now the NHL is considering giving Atlanta a third franchise again because it worked out so well the last 2 times.
Hey, third time's the charm, right? Eventually, Carolina's doing well. The 2 Florida teams are doing well. The Stars are doing well. I mean, Nashville's been there once, I think, maybe twice.
I think they just really want that TV market.
Yeah,
they just really want that TV market. They just can't figure out how to get a team there that can do it.
To me, if you're Atlanta, and the Hawks haven't really lit the world on fire as of late. Another option.
Don't remind me.
I'm sorry. I'm not.
Don't remind me.
My Chicago Bulls stink, so we're both in NBA hell right now. But if you're a sports fan in Atlanta, wouldn't you like another viewing option in the winter months? You know, when you're waiting for spring sports. You know, if the Hawks aren't good, you have your hockey team. So
well, when I was working sports radio in Atlanta, that's like the one thing that I truly missed. You did have the Falcons, you did have the Braves, you did have you have the Hawks, and then you had Atlanta United in MLS, which there was some excitement for it for the first couple of years because it looked like Arthur Blank was really leaning his money into it, and it led to an MLS Cup that wound up at Magic City. Great job, by the way.
It wanted some rings.
Yeah, I mean, what could go wrong with lemon pepper wings? Just ask Lou Williams, right? During COVID. But that was the one thing that I missed, and I had been to a Thrashers game, and I enjoyed it. Even as a Predators fan, I enjoyed it. But now, like, they're talking about, well, it's probably going to be in a suburb, like around Duluth or something like that. They got another arena that's out there that they're going to look into because of, just like the Braves moving to Cobb County.
Just for those of us who are not as familiar with Atlanta as you are, how far outside of Atlanta is the Braves stadium?
The Braves Stadium outside of Atlanta, it's probably about 15, 20 minutes. But if you make it Atlanta traffic, it could be 45. But it's like it's not that far as mileage. Traffic makes it suck because it's right in the middle of that Cumberland Marietta area where the shopping center is.
I've
and everything like that.
Atlanta traffic is some of the worst in the country.
Oh, it is. I personally recommend not going through Atlanta before midnight or after 5 a.m. on I-75.
My grandfather once said that even if you go to hell, you got to go through Atlanta first.
That's right. And I've been driving to Okeechobee from Kentucky for my entire life, Doug. And Doug knows it's true, right? And I'm telling you, I've tried every alternate route I can. US 23, cut over to I-95, anything I can do to avoid having to go through Atlanta, Georgia. And we were having the show one time, and my dad had died, and I was coming up through Atlanta, and there was a Georgia game, and it was like 12:30 at night, and there was like people were just insane. It was packed tight, and they were trying to squeeze in and cut in front of you and shit. And there was like 3 wrecks in front of me, and I was stuck here under the underpass while we had the show, right? And during Georgia, this was Tom Crane. This was a few years ago. They were getting gutsed up by somebody, but it's just, my God, guys, it's just awful.
You don't like bumper to bumper traffic doing 75 miles an hour?
They weren't doing 75. If they'd been doing 75, I'd been fine as hell. That's why I love driving in Lexington.
Last time I went through Atlanta, that's what I had, and it was always like that in Miami too.
It
was always very fast and bumper to bumper. So if if there's a wreck, it's going to be like a 40-car pileup.
Yeah, you talking about 95? On 95 going down towards Atlanta, like through Deerfield Beach and all that stuff like that. Yeah, I've experienced that, Doug. Now, Chicago can get biblical, right? So Atlanta's bad all the time. And Chicago, if you know what you're doing, you can manage it. People go to work early to avoid it and stuff like that. And but when it goes plumb to shit in Chicago, it can get biblical. Babies can be born, cars looking bad. I mean,
I can say,
do you mean
particularly in the winter in Chicago, it can get really bad, really quick. But I will say the worst I've ever experienced was leaving Athens at about 11:45 p.m. after Notre Dame played Georgia, and I had to get back to Atlanta to catch a 05 a.m. flight, and I just barely made it because there were so many cars on the road. Nobody's moving. There were accidents left and right. I made it, but man, it was some white knuckle driving. I'll just say that. Now, to Jason's point, even though it's far away, I have heard nothing but top-notch reviews on the Braves' new ballpark, and it's on my top 3 to-do list here because I've heard it's incredible.
Oh, it's great, and the Battery area that's around it with the shopping centers, the bars, and everything. It's the trend with the professional sports teams is where not only do they want that stadium, they want that entertainment experience. Excuse me. With the new Titan Stadium coming up, they're doing the same thing. Give me just a second here, and I'll finish.
Get my guys
point.
some water.
You need to grab your beer, man.
Yeah.
I'll go back to real quick to the Stanley Cup Finals, and I hate to use a cliche that's as old as sports, but for the Oilers, I think Game 4 is an absolute must-win. If they don't win that game, put the final nail in the coffin and schedule the parade for Florida, because if the Panthers go up 3-1, they're not. It's lights out. So
it's a ball game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already kind of inching that way after the beatdown that was Game 3, but if Florida goes up 3-1, start scheduling the floats for the parade. Go ahead, Ed.
And it could be over in 5.
Yeah. Florida's just tough. They're just out toughing Edmonton,
and they have the killer instinct.
They really do. They really do. And it's, now let's not forget earlier in the playoff, didn't Florida have to go up to Toronto and win Game 7 in Toronto? I mean,
well, they were also down 2-0 against Toronto and down 2 goals in Game 3.
I mean, that's the heart of a champion right there. That's the heart of a champion.
Hell yeah.
They're a team that never says die. And I don't think the Oilers quite have what it takes.
Hell yeah. What do you think, Doug? Who do you got in this, Doug?
I think the Oilers have what it takes if they had a different opponent.
I'm talking the toughness against this Florida team. I just
they don't.
think if they were playing, like you said, Ed, a more finesse team, I think Edmonton would win the series. But I think Florida's got enough skill to hang, but then the toughness factor is vastly weighted towards Florida.
Hell yeah. They're very pugnacious.
Well, they got the defense going at home. They gave up some goals in Edmonton, and if they shut them down again, then they're in Edmonton's head.
Does anyone think Edmonton's going to turn this around and win it, or we all got Florida?
I think it's conceivable that Edmonton takes it 6 games, but no, they're not going to win it.
Yeah. So Jason had brought up the NBA Finals, which has been rather exhilarating, and I know they are they going tonight? Is tonight it, or is it tomorrow night? Tomorrow night. They keep spacing these games out for me.
Wednesday, Friday, Monday.
Good
and
gracious.
And the 2-3-2 is no longer in effect.
If this thing goes 7 games, it might be the All-Star game for baseball. They keep spacing it out. No, I'm being facetious. I'm being facetious. Ed.
It would be the 22nd of June, but but I mean, you're getting close.
That's it. Now, I have a thought on that, and I don't mind that whatsoever. To me, if I was Adam Silver, I would not start the NBA season in October. I would move it towards after Thanksgiving. That way you get away from college football and the NFL. And so what if it goes towards the end of June or even into the beginning of July?
Because July is just baseball.
Just baseball, right? Yeah. I mean, I'll watch an NBA Finals game on July 1st, July 3rd, July 5th, what have you. But when it's an NBA game in October, November, December, and it's going up against college football or the NFL, well, they're going to lose that battle every day of the week and play on Sunday.
If for no other reason that there's more basketball games, so people figure I'll catch up with that later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't mind that if it goes 7 games and it's the 22nd of June. I'll be there. I'm gonna watch it for sure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, and I'm a Pacers fan. I've been wanting the Pacers to have an opportunity like this for a long time, even though this was unexpected for me. And I know the Thunder has more talent on paper for sure, in terms of results, really. But it's interesting for me that the Pacers were able to get in to the finals. And they look like a decent team.
Indiana's got to win tomorrow.
I think Indiana, to have a chance to win this series, cannot give up a game on their home court. Yeah, they have to protect home court. Through thick or thin, they got to get it done at Gainbridge, and that's a great home court advantage. That place will be rocking like crazy because, as Bob mentioned, I think this is only the second NBA Finals that have come to Indianapolis.
I have a hard time seeing them winning both.
They have to do it, though. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be definitely a chance. I mean, the defense that Oklahoma City is bringing to this finals is incredible. And we saw that in game 2. I mean, that really could have gotten out of hand in a hurry. But, kudos to the one thing about the Pacers, they never quit, man. They keep coming, whether they're down 10, 15. Heck, I think they were down 20 at one point in game 1. And they came all the way back and won game 1. So,
but weren't all of those epic comebacks in the playoff run on the road?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean it's incredible. The Pacers just never quit. But
there's less pressure on the road, I think, for these teams. I don't think they can get way down.
I think they revel in the opportunity to win on someone else's court. It's more fun to go into somebody else's backyard and upset the apple cart, so to speak. And I agree with you, Ed. I think there is a lot of pressure on the Pacers to win Game 3 at home. If they don't do that, this could get away from them in a hurry.
Well, I got to say, before we shift to Jason, see what he's going to think, is that I think Shane Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best defensive players I've seen since Gary Payton.
Oh, he's incredible, isn't he? He swarms whoever's got the ball. When he's on somebody, he's on them.
He's not half bad on offense.
No, he's great. I'm not saying he's not a great offensive player as well, but man, does he really get after it on the defensive end? And you like to see that, That's.
Oh yeah, I think he could. I think that it's a great defensive team overall. It's a nice game, and he's such a great defensive player that I think that he's the one that's going to shift the series. And I think it happened the other night too. And what do you got in it, Jason?
I think I said the Thunder in 5, I believe that it was, as Jeremy Smith, friend of the show, called the gentleman's sweep. But I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana maybe takes one more in this one. But I feel pretty confident in the Oklahoma City Thunder to finally get this one out and make the people of Seattle cringe once again. Because, like I said, the way they've been playing all season, it seems to be gelling now after that first game, and I don't think I'd see it stopping anytime soon. Indiana, credit to them, but if it was any other team out of the West, I might see where they have a chance, but with Oklahoma City, I'm not seeing it.
Bailey is
real quick, Jason, you might be able to help me, because not only is it going to make Seattle fans a little queasy, but it's going to make us Chicago Bulls fans a little queasy, because the architect of this Oklahoma City team, the general manager, whose name is escaping me, that's why I'm asking. You probably
Sam
know
Presti.
I think the Bulls had him in for an interview and decided not to go with him as their general manager. So now I've got some heartburn because, man, that could have been the Bulls, but of course it's not. Typical Chicago hiring the wrong person. See Mark Trestman over. Help me out. Who was the coach that the Cardinals had? He always wore he coached under Bear Bryant many years ago.
Oh, Gene Stallings.
No. He coached the Arizona Cardinals here recently. He's got the Bruce Arians. So Bruce Arians started his coaching career working for Bear Bryant many years ago.
He also worked for Mike Dubose too.
Yeah, and the Bears had a chance to hire him. Nope, they chose Mark Trestman out of the Canadian Football League. So that's just a long line of Chicago hiring the wrong guy at the wrong time. And this is another case where they passed on this guy. He goes to Oklahoma City and he builds an absolutely devastating championship team. And I tend to agree with Jason. I think the Thunder is going to pull this series out. Whether it's in 5 or 6, I don't know, but if I knew, I'd put money on it, and I don't do that. But yeah, I just think they're just watching them play defense. They swarm to the ball. They don't give you a lot of easy looks. They turn you over real easy. I love Tyrese Halliburton, but I think he's a one-man army going up against a behemoth in this series.
Wait a minute. There's defense in the NBA? I don't believe you.
What's that?
There's defense in the NBA? I don't believe you.
Hey, I got to give the NBA playoffs credit this year. There's been some defense. I've been excited. Yeah,
We're on the way back. We're on the way back, folks.
Yeah, I've appreciated the team kind of style of basketball we've been seeing in these playoffs. So that there's onesie twosie ones. Obviously, Ant-Man up in Minnesota, he's incredible. But you just can't do it alone anymore in the NBA. You need some depth, you need some guys around you, and this series has kind of proven that.
I agree with that, and nothing's really changed in that regard. Everybody wants to talk about Magic versus Jordan, but they forget that Magic had James Worthy and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, right? You want to talk about Larry Bird,
Sam Perkins.
And Sam Perkins. I mean, it goes on and on. And then I'm just saying, so even with Larry Bird, right? He had Kevin McHale, he had Robert Parrish,
Dennis Johnson.
Yeah, Dennis Johnson. Those guys were good, man. And that's what it takes to win. Is you got to have people around you that's good and good decision makers and buy into team defense when they play it. Now, here's when you can have defense in the NBA is when somebody's starhood rests on them playing defense. So the NBA is about stars. If you can become a star by playing defense, then you will get those calls and benefit. That's the way to work the game. If you're a star, you get certain calls and you know it, and you kind of can figure out how the officiating is going to go throughout the game. And a defensive player that the refs like because they're a star can get away with just a little bit more, and it can influence the series.
No, I completely agree, Bob. Absolutely. I mean, the stars are still going to get a little more, advantage with the officials. But I think what we're seeing is a post Jordan, post LeBron, post Kobe era where maybe they're still going to get a decent amount, but not to the level where it's like, all right, this is egregious. Come on, let's have a team game, and these have been good team games, good team basketball. The ball's moving around. The fouls I think so far in this series have been fair. I don't really recall. Jason, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen anything that I go, that's ridiculous, that's egregious. Come on, I think it's been pretty good so far.
I may have seen a few that kind of leave you scratching your head, but like you said, not as egregious. So it's hard to really have a fair officiating in anything because you're talking about speed with world-class athletes, and you've got to be on your toes for that. So, give a little forgiveness to officials on that, unless it's just so egregious and so obvious that we can see it, that we would go, "What the hell?" You're right. I think
I haven't thrown my remote at the TV yet, so that's why I'm saying
I would say that's a
brick.
Is Ed still with us? Ed, you there? There he is. Ed,
there he is.
Ed, who you got waiting? Yeah, I know you had to take your bathroom break.
Yeah, 'cause Doug didn't give us one.
Ed, who you got to win this NBA Finals?
I mean, I picked Indiana.
You're gonna stick with them.
I'm going to stick with them against my better judgment.
And a mouthful of whatever you're chewing on. Hopefully, it's good.
My meds.
Oh, your med. Okay, well that's good. Doug, anything for the NBA Finals, or you're just a neutral observer?
I'm a neutral observer. If I start talking, I'm going to mention teams that don't even exist.
Like
Like
Bob's
the
original favorite team, the Kentucky Colonels.
Yes.
Or the
Bob, do
spirit
you
of
remember the
State.
Colonels?
Yes, I
Didn't
do.
Billy Cunningham play for them?
Although they had Cotton Nash, and they at one time had Julius Irving, I think, for like some kind of deal of signing away. But the pretty good. The Colonels were pretty good. They had Danny Eskell. So they were a pretty interesting team.
Always good when we can drop some ABA knowledge on the listeners.
And
That's
Mel
awesome.
Daniels. Like back to the Pacers, they also had Mel Daniels that sold him to the Pacers. I think Mel Daniels played the most games of any Pacer as a Pacer.
Any final thoughts on the NBA Finals, gentlemen? All right, we can move to the main course. Big weekend. Omaha begins this weekend, College World Series. Bob, do you want to start us off with your thoughts on the College World Series?
Yeah, I love it that there's small teams in here, man. I love it that there's underdogs that have a chance, right?
There's a team that's not far away from where you live that made the College World. Tell us about them.
Oh, if you're talking about Murray State, the truth of it is Kentucky's 550 miles wide, and I live at the easternmost point of Kentucky, and from my house to Murray State is over a 500-mile drive, believe it or not. But if North Carolina was in it, it would be closer to my house than Murray State, for example, right?
But are they not the probably the best story going into this College World Series? I was seeing an article the other day in Murray, Kentucky. Their stadium seats 800 people total, and their coach, manager, whatever you want to call him, mows their own grass. Yeah, he mows the grass to their field. I mean, this is a I would equate it to, and I know Ed will give me a better version and Jason will give me a better version, but for me, this is like Gonzaga in 1999 before people knew Gonzaga. This is incredible. I am so excited for Murray State. Way to fight and knock off Duke, and man, Duke 4 years in a row going to the Super Regional, and they still haven't punched through. I know that makes Bob smile because he doesn't.
I love it. I hate them.
You hate them too, Ed.
I mean, I hate their basketball team, so I hate everything else.
I say absolutely.
I mean, how can you not? If most people, I think, love rooting for the underdog. Obviously, if your team is in the College World Series, you're rooting for your team. I don't have a dog per se in the fight. So, man, if Murray State can keep just doing it, I love it for them and their program and their coach. Ed, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I missed part of the question.
I'm just saying, don't you think it's great for Murray State? I mean, unless your team is in the College World Series, it's hard to not root for the underdog, in Murray State.
Oh, absolutely. And, don't forget about Coastal.
No, but Coastal, if I'm not mistaken, has already won a College World Series in the last 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. Jason can correct me on that if I'm wrong.
What was that again?
Coastal has won a College World Series.
2016.
Yeah. So I wouldn't quite call Coastal, even though they are, I guess you would call them a mid-major for college baseball. But I mean, they're a kind of established program in my eyes, whereas Murray State is not.
And also, Murray State is the first Missouri Valley Conference team, I believe, to make the College World Series since 2003. So you look at the accomplishment from that standpoint, and you're right about Coastal Carolina, where they've kind of become an established, unsung hero in a way, where they're there.
Gonzaga of college baseball.
The Gonzaga of college baseball, I would say they're close. I think a little bit more consistency. That I think you can make that argument, yes. But right now, I think you need a little bit more.
I mean, Coastal's actually won the whole thing. Gonzaga never has.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing myself. They're better than Gonzaga because they actually won the whole thing.
Well, Wichita State also won one in 1989 too, but they had a loaded roster that year.
Did you say Wichita State?
Yeah, Wichita State.
Yeah, I remember that was incredible.
That was a
Oh, we're coming back.
Did we all just
Better than fast
here for a minute?
There we go. We were on Wichita State, gentlemen. That's how powerful that was. Is that it really shocked our entire system right here while we're talking baseball.
It knocked us off, man.
Oh yeah. That's great.
Should we dive into these first matchups?
Let's do it.
Sure.
I think for our listenership, I think the first one we have to discuss is obviously the Arkansas Razorbacks against the LSU Tigers, and I think everyone's looking forward to this matchup.
John, tell me, how do they decide the first round, the opening round matchup?
It's just like March Madness. If you go to the NCAA's website, you can see from the beginning the regionals matching up with the super regionals, and then the super regionals matching up with who they would play the first game in Omaha. Now it's double elimination in Omaha until you get to the championship series when there's 2 teams left. Then it's a best of 3. But these are all now. There are going to be some maybe some SEC conspiracy theorists that are saying this is preordained, but I would argue against that because of how many regional and then super regional hosts there were in the SEC.
I think you could make the opposite argument because the loser of the game is in the loser's bracket.
But nobody thought it would just be Arkansas and LSU in Omaha from the SEC. I think most people thought there would be.
There's only 8 teams.
No, I understand that, but I would have guessed that there would have been 4 SEC teams.
Well, if you look back the last couple of years, either 3 or 4 teams from the SEC made up or almost half of the College World Series bracket. And it's been consistent for the most part. And then you have an anomaly like this year where you've got 2 and they're going to be facing off with each other to start off. And it's easy for, you mentioned the SEC conspiracy theorists. We'll throw it to the haters out there who actually pay attention to college baseball, which probably is a handful, if that they're going to sit here and say, oh, look at the SEC supremacy is gone. I'm not ready to say that.
Neither am I. I personally have an SEC team winning the whole bucket of popcorn.
And allow me, since we did real quick, we brought up Coastal Carolina earlier. Allow me to apologize to fine folks in Conway for doubting them at Super Regional against Auburn. Not only did they come out of that region, they basically whipped Auburn. I think it was after that first game when they won an extra inning, they sucked the air out of Plainsman Park. They sucked the air out of it and went on to sweep the series, which I found very, very impressive.
I owe an equal mea culpa to the folks in Conway. I had Auburn winning that series, and boy, was I wrong. Coastal handled that. They handled their business. Their pitching particularly was incredible.
And what's your reward possibility of facing a hot Arizona team right now? There's your reward.
That is a team that we talked about. Indiana not quitting. Arizona got their brains beat out in game 1 by North Carolina, 18-2, I think it was. And all they did was just fight their tails off in game 2. They won game 2, and then they were down in game 3. Came back, loaded the bases. North Carolina, I think, had a throwing error. That scored a run, and then Arizona pushed another run across. And next thing you know, they're going to Omaha. I mean, that was, to me, that was the Arizona beating North Carolina was the biggest shocker of the Super Regional, other than Murray State, you know. Because North Carolina came in looking like, you know, a hot knife going through butter, and Arizona said, well, not so fast, my friend. So, you know, don't rule out Arizona. You know, that Oregon State, Florida State series went 3 games. That was a great series. And Oregon State, you know, fought their way through, and they're in. And don't sleep on the Beaver.
Yeah,
they're playing as an independent this year. They're not in a conference, but they sort of, to what Doug has always talked about for football, a la the Florida State Bobby Bowden model, which was when Florida State was an independent, they would take on, you know, all comers and built their way up. Oregon State sort of did that this year as an independent in baseball. They did not play what you would call a softy schedule for their regular season.
And they played different kinds of teams, which could be an advantage for them.
And they traveled. They went all. They probably logged a lot of air miles, but they played tough teams from different conferences. They traveled. You know, I mean, they are battle hardened. I mean, so don't sleep on Oregon State by any means. And that's Bob. Bob loves the Beaver. He doesn't like Wally, but he loves the Beaver. And so Oregon State's still alive. My Razorbacks are still alive, and boy, did they dismantle Tennessee in that final game in Fayetteville. I mean, that was Arkansas really put their stamp on, hey, we're going to Omaha this year by totally outclassing Tennessee in that 3rd game and sending Tony V and his team home.
And their reward is playing a very hot LSU team right now. Remember last week on the show when I gave my story about the Louisiana drinking contest that I smartly did not take a part of, but some of my senior classmates did back in the year 2000 in Panama City Beach. And it showed. They did it in West Virginia. They pretty much drank them under the table in the style of a baseball game. And after the scare with Little Rock, it seems like LSU has woke up. And
big time.
They're clicking now. And I would say right now, even though I have Coastal Carolina as my sleeper, right now I would say the favorite going into this, the one that's got the hot hand, I would have to go with the LSU Tigers, even though that may be disappointing and cringeworthy probably for some fan bases, especially in the South.
I mean, would you, if you're both teams there in that game, because remember, we're talking, this is double elimination, right? And, you know, the winner gets to stay in the winner's half of the bracket. The loser obviously goes to loser. If you're Arkansas and LSU, and they've probably faced each other more than a few times this year, are you selling out everything to win that game and saying, you know, we'll sell out to win that game before worrying about whoever else we face, whether it's the winner's bracket or losers? I think you have to.
Well, yeah, I think at this point, especially with a conference rival, you have the opportunity to put them in an elimination situation. You've got to go for it because you could beat them once again, maybe in the semifinals or near the finals. And in that case, you can also put it on another team to possibly do the job and knock them out. That way, it gives you a bit of an advantage, and you don't have to face that conference rival, and it makes it more advantageous for you to climb up the bracket and get to that title.
Now, to play devil's advocate, as Doug loves to do, and I'll do it, wouldn't it be hilarious to piss everyone else off if you're an SEC fan Whoever wins this game, goes to the winner's bracket. The loser goes to the loser's bracket. But they could still meet back up in the deciding College World Series best of three final. That is not out of the realm of possibilities.
If it's certainly correct, there's two brackets, like on each side, and I think from what I understand, they do they've been doing kind of like a regional round robin within both of them, and then the winners of those meet for the title game. But if that's the case, then they would be playing for a chance to win the game.
I think that would be absolutely incredible if whoever wins, whoever loses, but then they end up ultimately meeting again in the best of three. I think that would be, I think that would be hilarious. And it would also ruin a lot of the people that say there's conspiracy theories as well, because the SEC has been the best conference for the last at least 8 to 10 years, in my personal opinion. There have been one-offs, your Coastal Carolina, your Oregon States, but to see the two best teams that are, LSU got hot at the end. Arkansas has been pretty consistent throughout the whole season. They took a little dip towards the end, but if they were to meet up again in the best of three to decide the whole thing, one, ESPN would love it because that's TV ratings, but two, I think we'd probably get the best baseball. The only other two that I really think that are close is Arizona and Oregon State. I know UCLA is playing good, but they to me are not battle tested. Ed, what do you think? You're the Big Ten guy. Tell us about the lone Big Ten team, the UCLA Bruins.
I think they're a solid team. I don't have them winning it at all. I definitely don't. And I thought that UTSA had a shot against them, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, I was surprised UTSA didn't give them a little more gumption in that series out in LA, but that is the benefit of that is the one thing you can say about the baseball tournament. When you're at home, both in the regional and the super regional, that's a kind of a big weight off your routine stays the same. You get to get up your normal time, you get to sleep in your own bed, you eat it, versus being on the road multiple weeks, which that wasn't the first week UTSA was on the road. So trying to go, that's what made Murray State such an incredible story. But I think we're all kind of
coming out of a weak Big Ten this year.
But yeah, the Big Ten was a bit down. Oregon was decent, but they weren't their usual self, and Nebraska got housed, and put out pretty quick. So Big Ten has a little work to do for next year, no doubt. What about your team, your other team in your home state, Bob? You got two. What about those Louisville Cardinals? I know you don't normally like to see red as a Kentucky Wildcat fan, but what do you think about Louisville?
I think Louisville's doing pretty good. I don't know if they're as well tested as some of the other teams, but obviously they haven't been lately. And they won in a clutch fashion. It would be interesting if Coastal and Louisville won out in that bracket. But now back to the way the round robin works. The way the round robin works is Coastal and Arizona State and Louisville are going to play. And the losers of them two games are going to play each other. And then the winner of whoever wins on the first bracket in the next game, the loser of that game plays the winner of the first two losers. Right? And
Bob, will your Kentucky fandom allow you to root for Louisville, or are you saying to hell with them?
Well,
so you're rooting for the Beavers too, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna root for Murray State, and I just don't really love Louisville. If they've got players that should have went to UK or Marshall, especially ones from here. I know they don't have nobody from here because it would be on the news. The local guy here from Ashland, because it is a common thing for us to put guys in this position. But I don't think any of our guys are playing for Louisville, so fuck them.
Now, okay, so I'm going to throw this out, and then I'll let you guys agree or disagree with me real quick. I'm going to rank these first matchups in order, and if I'm wrong, you guys can tell me I'm wrong.
Now, what's your order? What's your criteria?
Of not only the rivalry, the competition, and then obviously chance to win the national championship, and just general intrigue, right? I'm gonna put LSU and Arkansas number one. These are
no, I don't think anyone's fighting on that.
Yeah, I think that's number one. Deep-seated SEC rivals. LSU of recent vintage is probably the most heralded SEC program in Omaha. They've won so many championships. Arkansas, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They've never actually gotten it done in Omaha. The other thing we love is Jason brought light to it, but LSU being back in Omaha is great for us because they have a secondary competition, which is, can LSU and their fan base break their own record of Jell-O shots, which they set in 2023 by drinking 68,800 and some odd Jell-O shots. We'll keep a running tally on that. Hopefully
Well, they have to be. I assume these only count while the team is alive.
No, it's just through. You know, you go in, you buy a Jell-O shot, you tell them who your team is. Even if the team gets eliminated, but you're still there watching games, you can get credit for the Jell-O shot.
So do you do them off the stripper's belly? Do you do the Jell-O shot off the stripper's belly?
So it's a restaurant in Omaha that is usually they do this Jell-O shot challenge to raise money for a good cause, and they pit the teams that are there, the 8 teams and their fan bases, who can drink. And so the record was set in 2023 by the LSU fan base. They drank 68,800 plus Jell-O shots.
That's impressive. Now, Doug, I've got a question for you. I got to know this since you're a rock and roller. Have you ever done a Jell-O shot off the belly of a stripper?
Off the belly of what?
A stripper, you know, a dude like you were partying at the bar, and they started doing jelly shots off the stripper's belly.
No, I can't say that I've done exactly that.
Yeah, that's where jelly shots become important, you know.
Asked and answered. Number 2 of the games here, I think Arizona versus Coastal Carolina is my second top tier matchup. I like that. Arizona's a long-time historically good program. Coastal's got a national championship in the last 10 years. East versus West, I think that to me is my second best matchup of the 4 matchups. Then I'm going to go Louisville versus Oregon State. I think that's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's almost like 2A and B.
Yeah, it's, you know, Louisville's pitching against Oregon State's hitting. That intrigues me. And then, unfortunately, kind of the bottom, the last game. Obviously, Murray State's the Cinderella story, but they're playing UCLA, who's been kind of sleepy throughout most of this. Now, I'm not taking anything away from UCLA; they're a good team, but they're just not the most exciting team to watch. You know, so that's how I would rank the 4 games that we're going to get.
How do these brackets work, Sean? What teams can actually end up in the final?
They can all end up in the final. That's the thing. So it's double elimination through, you know, in the process. So the winners will face winners, losers will face losers. And so the goal is to just not get that second loss and, you know, survive and advance until you get to the last 2 teams standing. When we get to the last 2 teams standing, then they will play a best-of-3 series to close out the College World Series.
I've got a feeling that you're going to be looking at Arkansas or LSU versus Oregon State.
I'm kind of leaning with you, Doug. I'm feeling LSU versus Oregon State. And if you want to talk about a matchup that really excites me from the standpoint of just X's and O's from the baseball standpoint, Oregon State LSU with the pitching and hitting battles in that one. That if I am a TV executive at ESPN right now, in charge of the College World Series, selling advertising and everything like that, that's the matchup that I want for my championship is LSU versus Oregon State.
I think that's probably if we, and I don't have them, and I apologize, and Ed should be apologizing too because he's usually on top of odds and things of that nature for those that like to throw a few nickels down in a certain place in the desert. But I think an LSU or Arkansas versus Oregon State is probably the odds-on favorite for the final two.
Yeah, I think Arkansas was around plus 200. I think.
But to be honest, we don't get much action on college baseball.
No, I would get. Yeah, it's probably not your most highly gambled sporting event in the book. But I go back. The one thing I think about is if Coastal and those pitchers can stay hot and keep tossing. I think back to the 2001 World Series where the Arizona Diamondbacks were not the greatest team in the world. They were not. But you had to face Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling over and over and over again. And those two kids for Coastal, man, they're chucking the shit out of that ball. And if they can keep doing that, who's to say? Who's to say?
Okay, John. You sidetrack.
I'm being that's a stretch. I'm not saying those two kids are Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling, but you get. I'm just making a very loose analogy. That's all.
They need their bullpen to pitch well if you want to pick up some innings, so you can keep rolling those two guys out there.
No, John, it was you brought up the 2001 World Series, and I have another story for you guys. So I made a bet with a friend of mine when I was 19 years old in Florence, Alabama. He's kind of a high school dropout. He was a mutual friend.
Wait, real quick. Beautiful Florence, Alabama. Thank you.
Yeah, it's give or take. But anyways. So he's like this guy was like one of those, like, he liked the Yankees, he likes the Lakers, he likes, at that time, the hot college football team was probably like Miami, Nebraska, like one of those.
Sure.
So we got into a whole conversation about the World Series, and I was like, dude, the Diamondbacks have a chance to win this series. Like, they could win it because I think that was also the same year that they took out St. Louis, who actually had a pretty good World Series roster right around that time. But I was like, they got a good chance to take them out because everybody was dismissing them at the time. Well, he was like, we'll bet $20 on it. I was like, yeah, sure. So it got to that last game, Game 7. And it was in the ninth inning, and it was when the Yankees were in the lead. And I got a phone call from him and I went to voicemail, and he said, yo, you better get that $20 ready because your boys are losing. And I was like, fuck. So,
Jason, can I interject real quick for those that are younger listeners?
To his point, he's got a fair point because, number one, the Yankees were a dynasty at that point. They had won, I think, 3 of the last 4 World Series. I think the lone one they didn't was the Marlins in '97 because they had won '98 against the Padres, '99. Was that the Mets or the Braves? One of the two, and the other one was the Braves or Mets. Flip-flop them.
Yeah, 99 Padres, and I think 2000 was...
No, 98 was Padres. 99 was either Braves or Mets, and then the other one was the opposite.
Yeah.
So they had won 3 in a row at the time. it might have been the only time in the history of baseball where the whole country was rooting for the Yankees, because this was 2 months after 9/11 had happened.
Yep.
And you had the miracle comeback with was that a Jeter home run in Game 4 or Game 5 to the opposite field? He's a righty. He hit it to the short porch and left at Yankee Stadium. And then on top of that, going into your ninth inning, it's in Arizona. They call out the baddest closer in the history of baseball. You hear the Metallica. Mariano Rivera is coming out, and the Yankees have a lead. So it's a signed, sealed, delivered. There's a reason this guy called you early, because Mariano Rivera doesn't blow many games. Okay, go ahead. I've set the scene.
Yes, you set the scene to the part where I listened to the voicemail and I'm seeing Mariano Rivera running out to the mound, and I'm going, fuck. But as that inning progressed, and then it eventually led to the bloop game-winning hit.
That was a blooper.
By who? Can you name him? Who was it?
Luis Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who was a former
lefty.
Houston
Yes, sir.
Astro.
Luis Gonzalez.
And I was sitting with my roommate watching, because my other roommate was also a Yankees fan. And I'm jumping up going, yeah. And by the way, the guy that I made the bet with, his nickname was Slappy. So I say that to say this. I called him back. It went to voicemail and said, give me my $20 and choke on that slap nuts. And by the way, I never got the $20.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, that's...
I was like, you work in fucking construction. You got 20 goddamn dollars.
Nah, he spent that on coffee and a breakfast sandwich, man. And a half tank of gas.
Or a bag of weed, I don't know.
Well, at least you have the story and the ability to say you were always right. It's because I don't think anybody thought Arizona, once Mariano Rivera came out, was going to win that game. But that was one of the greatest World Series of my life, for sure. Any World Series that goes 7 games is great. Ed's got probably more because he's older than us. You know.
Let me correct you on one thing real quick. I'm not right all the time. I'm right most of the time.
Well, I could be a horse's ass and say something, but I won't.
Yeah, you don't worry, son. You will be during the college football.
I know most of our fan base are Alabama fans, so I don't want to hit that hornet's nest just yet. Yeah. We'll save that for maybe November. But so yeah, no, I mean I think this College World Series is going to be great. I think SEC fans, don't be too upset about this year. I would expect we'll get 4 or 5 SEC teams in next year. It's not going to change. The SEC is still the most powerful, dominant conference in college baseball. Probably the SEC, like as much as we talk about how great SEC football is, and obviously the current college basketball champion is an SEC team, I would say over the last 10 years, baseball has been the absolute most dominant sport. And, I mean, you go all the way down, like Vanderbilt, is a dominant power in college baseball. So, Kentucky made the tournament. Kentucky's a damn good team. So it's not going to change anytime soon. Don't worry. Don't fret. But, for this year, maybe let the Murray States of the world, have a little cake and ice cream, Give the little guy a chance is all I'm saying. I mean, if a non-SEC team wins it this year, we'll get 5 years in a row of SEC teams winning it. So the sky is not falling. The castle hasn't been usurped by, hordes of bandits. It's just a one-off, and everything will be fine. I was a little shocked that Vandy went down. I was a little shocked that Ole Miss went down.
I was very surprised Auburn didn't win. I had picked Auburn. I thought Auburn was kind of finding their groove.
I was very happy that Auburn went down.
Doug, you're
That's
happy
why I
with
picked.
Auburn?
That's why I picked Auburn. I feel that I have the ability to hex teams right now. So that's why I went with Auburn last week.
Doug, I'm surprised you haven't put a hex on Auburn's equestrian team, which still seems to win national championships, with as much as you put a hex on Auburn.
I'll have to get to work on that.
Yeah, that's the only one I think they've been winning championships. It's the equestrian and dressage program. But Texas went down. But next year, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if there are 6 teams in Omaha next year that are all SEC teams, because it's, you have premier facilities, premier stadiums, the best stadiums to see college baseball in. So don't fret, relax, enjoy this year's World Series, and next year, and that's not to say I picked Arkansas to win the College World Series this year. I'm going to stick with that. I like the way Arkansas is playing. I think they finally get over the hump and get championship number 1. They've been close a lot of times in the past. Thankfully for Arkansas, they don't have to see Texas. Texas has been a real burr in their saddle, so to speak. But I just hope the games are great. The games are close so far. You guys tell me if I'm wrong, but so far the games have been really exciting, really interesting in this College World Series.
It really has been. You've got your Cinderella story in Murray State, which I thought that after taking out Ole Miss, their confidence just rose, and it helped them in the series with Duke. Now you're going into a matchup with UCLA, which could be a winnable matchup for Murray State if they're matched up with them. So you could see them maybe get a little bit, give a little bit of a scare from that standpoint. But I think eventually the clock's going to strike midnight for the Racers. But by who is going to be the question.
And that would be another game where we had talked about with Arkansas and LSU, because they are so intimately aware of each other, where you push all the chips into the middle of the table and you try to win that game so you're not in the loser's bracket. I would say the same has to be the case for Murray State. Murray State, to have a chance, they got to push all the chips in on this game against UCLA and do whatever they have to do to win that game. And just, you worry about tomorrow, but get by UCLA. I think if Murray State loses that game, we will quickly see Murray State go home. And, for those of us that love the underdog, I don't necessarily want to see that. I'd like to see Murray State stick around a little bit.
Now, if they win the College World Series, Sean, that means Coach still has to mow the grass here?
That's what they said. They said that the manager, he's doing like all the logistics pieces. He's, laundering the uniforms and mowing the grass. And I mean, they don't have a great big support staff there at Murray State. So, everybody's got to kind of chip in and pitch in. And, it's not Vanderbilt, where Vanderbilt has, a big, or Ole Miss or Mississippi State, who've recently both won national championships. Or Texas, where they got all the money in the world in Texas, apparently, from what I hear. They all got Rolls Royces and Lamborghinis.
Oh yeah, there's not much going on in that end of Kentucky, and they're not too far from the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio River, Cairo, Illinois, Missouri, and Arkansas. That's a pretty unique and beautiful location. And people are big fans, and they produce some competitive basketball there as well. And maybe if they get some funding out of their share of the World Series money, it'll allow them to put out a quality product. I'm proud of the guys, and I'm going to root for them.
I'm proud of them, and I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for those kids at Murray State. They got the heart of a lion, and I hope they can keep it going. It's the Cinderella story is a great story. It always has been. Doug, how much time do we got left, or we got to run?
Where are we running?
Well, I mean, you tell me. You're the producer. We got any time left?
I'm running to bed pretty soon.
Ed's got to run soon, but do we have 5 minutes? Can we get 5 minutes real quick?
Sure.
Because I know Jason wants to talk about this landmark House versus NCAA decision that just recently came down. Jason, I know you probably have some thoughts on that. Do you have enough time to talk about that, or do you want to push that to next week?
I could throw a quick take in on it. And really,
because real quick, Paul Feinbaum was on Dan Patrick's show the other day, and he says the sky is falling. So I'll just caveat this discussion with that.
Look, when is the sky not falling? That's the question. That's my first question.
It seems like every day, right?
Yes, every day the damn sky is falling when it comes to college athletics. Now, on a serious note, obviously we know that amateurism has been dead for a while, but this House settlement made it official that amateurism is now officially dead when it comes to college sports. Now, I feel like this House settlement has brought on just as many questions now than it answered the previous questions we've had. Because now, what are the schools going to do? How are they going to budget? Now you look at programs like Tennessee, like Georgia, those ones that don't have general managers, where Kirby Smart's making all the decisions. I don't think, and to his credit, and God bless him, but Kirby Smart doesn't need to be going over paperwork and financial sheets for finances. They need the general manager. The general manager, as important as it is in professional sports, it just became important, if not more, in college sports now. And the other thing too that I would be interested in seeing, now you go after a 5-star recruit at, say, an edge rusher position, where you have depth in that position with a lot more experience that you know is not going to head to the portal, that's going to come back and it's going to stay there for a while. Are you going to pay millions upon millions of dollars for them to ride the line? That doesn't seem to be very frugal at this standpoint now. Now you start going after maybe a lesser diamond in the rough that you can get for $600,000 to fit into your roster budget. Now the flip side of that could be you still don't have any kind of salary. You may not still have any kind of salary cap, and you could just go gung-ho and everybody gets the bag. I mean, that's the other question that I asked too, is does that still stay into play, or do we now have somewhat of a unofficial salary cap moving forward?
Yeah, so what I saw initially, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Ed or Doug as well, please jump in if I'm wrong. I thought I saw the initial one real quick before I say that. The one thing we did learn from this decision is we learned two things. We learned the NCAA is basically dead. It doesn't have any sort of gravitas to make any real decisions. Number one, that's been ongoing as they've lost court battle after court battle after court battle. Number two, football is certainly king. That's what this decision has certainly said. Football is the king. Will make the decisions that will radiate the after effects or aftershocks that will hit other sports, Olympic sports, both men's and women's, that really, let's call them what they are, they're the non-money making sports. Those are the two things that I kind of took out of this. But to Jason's point, yeah, lots of questions, more questions than answers. But I think I saw that initially the salary cap is $20.5 million.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which, if you're Michigan, well, you've already spent 15 of that on that quarterback, so you've got 5.5 left to spend.
And if you're Texas, you're in the luxury tax.
You're in right, yeah. So my question on that is, who is adjudicating that salary cap and collect? I mean, they said that it's the accounting. They know the accounting firm. So Deloitte and Touche, for those who don't know accounting, that's one of the big four. PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte and Touche, KPMG, and help me out with the last one, Ernst & Young. So Deloitte is going to be the accounting firm that kind of runs and handles all of this. But the follow-on question is, if, like you said, if you're a Texas and you're in the luxury, what is the penalty for them going over the salary cap that is now the standard, along with the previous precedent of saying that now you can have, I think it was 105 and no more scholarship players on your football team. Where are the penalties going to be if you exceed either one of those? That's what I think.
I think the next thing that you need to keep an eye on. Well, actually, number one, what happens to the NIL collectives? Do they go away? Do they kind of find a way to kind of slither around these new settlement rules? And also the other thing to think about, and I go back to this, I wished I was a lawyer in college athletics because my house would be bigger than Joel Osteen's. Because you're going to see a lot more billable hours in this. And why do I say that? Because so now this house settlement, how does it gel with the individual NIL laws when it comes to each state? And how many of those states maybe try to take this to court, try to adjudicate it, to try to get the run around from that standpoint? Because that's probably the next thing that you're going to see.
That is absolutely the next thing, and that's why President Trump played golf with Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, who we all know and love, or maybe not, but
probably beat it.
And Pete Bevacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame, because both of them, and I think the other conferences would agree with this, they're looking for guardrails from a federal perspective versus, to your point, okay, now we've got a ruling, and now all these different states, there's 50 states in the union, obviously. Now, all the states are seeing this ruling. How can we usurp it or get around said ruling by making state law, et cetera, et cetera? And the reason I think a lot of these conference commissioners want federal intervention, whether it's Congress, President Trump, et cetera, to come out with a federal, that way all 50 states and all the colleges and universities that are housed within said 50 states are all kind of playing by the same rules. You know, it'd be like me playing one set of Monopoly rules and Jason, you're playing another set of Monopoly rules, and we can't agree on what happens when we get the free parking, right? You know, so I do think that's going to be the follow-on to this ruling, and I think you're right about that. It is nice to finally get a little more answers at the very minimum. Are we at 100%? No, I think we're still at about probably 55, 60%. Are we getting there? To your point, as far as NIL collectives, I think since now colleges can directly pay the players, regardless of the sport, what have you. I would say they turn these NIL collectives into just simply like they used to be, boosters. And hey, if you want to pay X amount of dollars and support Bob's team, Kentucky, you've been an NIL collective for the basketball program. Well, now you're a booster again for the basketball program, and you can donate however much you want, and then the university pays said team or players, etc. You know, and maybe
you're basically maintaining the slush fund, but it comes to a point like how will that be utilized and how much it could be utilized, or if it could be utilized at all? That's the next question, because you go back to the whole fair playing field, because that's been the goal in all this, right? Is everybody wants guardrail, you want an even playing field. And to what you said earlier about federal law and Congress, to me, and as much as I hate to say it, that may be the only solution, because we're talking about, let's just put it like from a like a professional league perspective, except it's like a national collegiate league.
Yeah.
It's national. Everybody's got to play the same rules within the same country and not within the same state. In the NIL laws, each state would be different from California to Alabama to Florida to Texas, so on and so forth. So that leaves really a lot of gray area where you could see an advantage in one NIL law in the state, which could be a disadvantage for another state that could be involved. And it was just a complete jumbled mess. And from that standpoint, you could try to do it through the private sector, but do you really trust that? Do it from the
No.
do you really trust that either?
No,
Not really.
I don't think we trust any of these entities, but the one thing we do know, to your point, not speaking per se on sports, right? But what we do know is that most entities, despite the few that are on the president's sort of in the president's doghouse regarding other things, but most institutions, whether they're private or state, are still getting federal dollars for academics. That's when I'm talking academic. They're getting federal dollars for academics. If they're doing that, then that should be an impetus. And I know our government, both the executive branch, the president, and the Congress, the Senate, and the House, have much larger fish to fry than college sports. Because again, this is just game. And scholarships are still there. Those aren't going away. But we do need some guardrails that will keep, whether you're Alabama, whether you're California, whether you're little Wyoming, the Cowboys, in Laramie, we're all kind of playing by the same rules, guardrails, and finances going forward. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, one last thing on that. There's been one sport that actually really benefits from this house settlement, and that is baseball. And I heard this on Sirius XM Full Ride, which Rick Neuheisel is a co-host of, and they were talking about this earlier. But now baseball gets 35 full scholarships. Now we've seen the past where
that's a big win for baseball.
That's a big win for baseball, because sometimes players as good as they are, a college may only have like a half or 3/4 of a scholarship left that they would be able to give, and they're not going to get fully paid from that athletic scholarship. Now with this house settlement, that changes. So the baseball athletes in college sports, they're celebrating now because this changes a complete dynamic for them financially in the house settlement. So if you want to see a light at the end of the tunnel, you look at the baseball players now who have to be celebrating this, because now they can all get full rides, and 35, and each school can get about 35 of them.
No, I think that's a huge win for baseball, but I'm a little scared, for women's sports and Olympic sports, because the big programs that have the big money, everything's going to be kind of okay there, But some of the smaller, when I say smaller, less money making, even power programs, and I'll give you a Kansas maybe, or a Baylor. They might have to make some tough financial decisions going forward of what, because we still have the federal law of Title IX. So you have the same amount of men's programs as you do women's programs. And if you're running in the red financially, you're going to start, and we saw this a little bit during COVID. A prime example of it was Stanford. Stanford used to have the most robust athletic program, and they folded some of their sports programs because they were running in the red. If you start seeing a hockey team go away, or a tennis team go away, or a track and field team go away, I think, that is a concern, I think, that needs to be raised.
And I think it's valid, because what football, the revenue that it would bring in, especially with power schools like in the SEC, the Big 10, Big 12, so on and so forth, that those help fund some of those other programs. And I mean, even to the point, if you're able to throw out $1 million to an FCS team to take an ass whooping on your schedule for a season, then yeah, you've got money to be able to pay for these schools. That dynamic's going to change now because the money that we paid in football now has to go back and be reinvested into that football program now with the players. Now,
I mean, the money making programs have to be fed, the money making sports, which is basically, if we divide it along, we know the two biggest conferences of the Big Ten and the SEC. Football and basketball are number 1, number 2. We all know that. For the SEC, baseball is number 3 because baseball is a moneymaker for the SEC. For the Big Ten, ice hockey is a moneymaker for the Big Ten. After those, and that parallels obviously pro sports. What's popular in the United States is NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and NHL. But after those 4, I think some of these colleges and universities are going to have to start making some tough financial decisions. And I think, I know this is a topic for another day. We've gone long tonight, but I think we may see that in the future. Like, oh man, where did my women's golf team go? Or where did my men's soccer team go? Or, tennis team or what have you? I think this is just like you said, Jason, this is the beginning. I think it's the beginning of the end. I don't think it's the end, but if you're a lawyer, I would be jumping into this because you're going to have a lot of billable hours. And number 2, I think there are more questions that need to be answered. It's helpful, certainly, that we got resolution here. I don't necessarily like that they only went back so many years to pay so many players. I think there are a lot of players that probably deserve some payment that didn't get paid, but it is what it is. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a judge, but it's certainly helpful. But hopefully it will move us towards, because football is the king, that's why we're all here, we all love college football, to a closer even playing field, which I think recently we kind of have had. Bob would probably argue against that. Kentucky hasn't won the SEC yet. And Bob, I'm with you. I would love to see that, to be honest with you. I'd love to see Indiana win the Big Ten. I'm all for. That's what makes, and I hate to be that guy that always brings up the NFL, but what makes the NFL great is the small, the Indianapolis Colts, the Green Bay Packers, the Buffalo Bills, and recently, people think I'm joking when I say this, but the Kansas City Chiefs has won the Super Bowl a couple of times recently. Kansas City's not a big market. It's not. If the NFL had its druthers, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Chicago Bears and the LA Rams would win. But that's what makes the NFL great is that sort of parity. And I think that's what we would love to see in college football, unless you're a fan of obviously the Titans of the game, the Blue Bloods. But I hope this is a step in that right direction. Jason knows it better than I do, but that's the hope.
Guys, I think it's been a great show. Everybody,
other than Ed's team, we don't want Michigan to do well ever. So
fuck Michigan, Ed.
So
all right, guys, let's hold all our thoughts till next Tuesday.
Great show, everyone.
Night,
y'all
everybody.
Be safe. Take care.
Later.
Smacking off the podcast. Fuck your city, dog balls. The college sports authorities.
Thank you for supporting Smacking Off the Podcast. Make sure to stream in every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for an all-new live cast.